Our next speaker is Taylor Morgan. Josh, do you have some criteria for Taylor?
Yep. Taylor is speaking out of the Competent Communication Manual, project number 2, Organize Your Speech. His objectives are to select an appropriate outline which allows listeners to easily follow and understand your speech, make your speech clear with supporting material directly contributing to that message, use appropriate transitions when moving from one idea to another, and create a strong opening and conclusion. His time is 5 to 7 minutes.
Okay. We hear hundreds of voiceover messages in a day without realizing it. But what exactly is a voiceover? And what makes for an effective voiceover artist? Taylor's speech will introduce us to the art of voiceover. Taylor Morgan in a world where. Taylor Morgan in a world where.
Fellow Toastmasters, before I jump into my speech this afternoon, I need a volunteer to help me. Morgan, I'm so glad you raised your hand. Morgan, if you could do me a favor and just read what's on that piece of paper in front of you.
The beauty of a machine in balance.
Thank you. What you've just done is read a voiceover. Now, what exactly is a voiceover? A voiceover, it's an unseen speaker used to promote an idea, a product, to narrate. Voiceovers, of course, are done by voiceover artists, and it's their job to interpret what's written on a piece of paper, to read it, to analyze it, to bring it to life, using imagination and sincerity. We're exposed to hundreds, if not thousands, of voiceovers during the course of the day. In fact, we hear them so often, a lot of times we just tune them out. Most of us will think of radio or television commercials as voiceovers, but what are some other places we might hear them that you could think of?
Introductions to shows.
Introduction, absolutely. Casinos, walking through the casinos, you'll hear announcements.
Phone messages.
Phone messages. Video games, shopping malls, theme park announcements. Voiceovers are everywhere. In fact, voiceovers is a vast billion-dollar industry. Billion with a B. Because companies are willing to spend money and pay good money for somebody who can effectively deliver the message of the company. So what makes an effective voiceover artist? How does a voiceover artist turn a piece of paper and bring it to life? In a 5-minute speech, we can only kind of scratch the surface, but a few points. Number one, you have to know your product. You have to know what you're selling, and you have to be enthusiastic about it. Because if you're not enthusiastic about it, your listener isn't going to be excited about it. So know your product. Know what it is you're selling. For example, the beauty of a machine in balance. The words by itself don't make a lot of sense, but if you knew that was a tagline for a luxury SUV, that might make a little more sense. Second part is you have to know your audience. You have to know what type of sell you're using. Is it a hard sell? Is it a soft sell? For example, you might use a much softer voice to sell a luxury vehicle, the beauty of a machine in balance, versus the hard sell of the monster truck guy. We've heard him, the Sunday, Sunday, Sunday announcer. Thirdly, when you're reading a script, the most important thing, smile when you read it. The warmth will come out in your voice as you're reading it, which is a great Toastmasters tip, by the way, too. But very important, smile. So Morgan, I'm going to ask you one more time if you could read this, but keep in mind, know now, you know what your product is. You know your audience. And smile when you read it. So if you wouldn't mind one more time.
beauty of a machine in balance.
Fantastic.
Oh, that was porno, sorry.
So we heard the difference. That was good. We've heard the difference between the two. It's a matter of animating the words. It's a matter of bringing it to life. Here's another example. Has anybody in the room been to the movie theaters in, say, the past, I don't know, 50 years? Jimmy has, thank you. Does anybody know where they might have heard this phrase before? If you can all read that. For those of you with eyes as bad as mine, it says, in a world where. Don LaFontaine was the master of voiceovers. And you may not know his name, but I promise you, you have heard his voice. He is the king of movie trailers. And he is the man who coined that phrase, in a world where. Think of every movie trailer that you've ever seen. How do they all start off? In a world where. And Don was a master. He could take the exact same phrase, the exact same words, and say it in two different ways, and have it mean two completely different things. For example, if he was doing a trailer for a horror movie, he'd use a more gravelly tone. You'd hear him say, in a world where, versus a comedy where you'd use more of a light tone. In a world where, same words, two different meanings. Just to illustrate the point, if I could have everybody just close your eyes for a minute here. I'm going to read to you two scripts. These are two different movie trailers. And just listen and tell me what kind of movie you think it would be just based on the tone. First one. In a world where puppy dogs play and children frolic. Second one. In a world where puppy dogs play and children frolic. You can open your eyes now. Exact same words, but two different meanings, just based on how the script is read. Voiceovers are everywhere. We can't avoid them. Stop for a moment next time you hear one and just listen and ask yourself, what does it take to produce this? Who is the person behind the microphone? And maybe even ask yourself, is this something that I could do? After all, the next Don LaFontaine might be in this room somewhere. Coming soon to a Toastmasters near you. And we'll be right back after these messages. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Taylor. In a world where time is important, how did our speakers do on their time?
Eric came in at 11:49, and Taylor came in at 6:54.
Okay. Now the fun part. Not that Josh would ever have anything fun for us to do, but table topics are up. Table topics. Oh, Darren, you're right. I'm sorry.
Worried there
I
for a
need to
second.
put my glasses on.